The Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. As promised, I have Ed Alvarez from the Commission on Decolonization. He's here with us this evening. We'll be talking about his two meetings with the United Nations, one I think in the Caribbean and one, of course, on the United Nations and in New York. Tonight, we're not going to be taking phone calls. We got a lot of information to disseminate tonight, and I promise I will have Ed back in a couple of weeks, and we'll devote the show to all phone calls. Likewise, we'll devote one segment of our Buzz radio show as well to Ed taking phone calls from the people of Guam. But tonight, let's get the information out. Welcome back, Ed. You've come back from, gosh, all parts of the world, meeting with the United Nations regarding plebiscite and Guam's quest. Please, you're on.
Yeah, I'd like to give you the public a review of what happened in the St. Vincent Islands and the Grenadines, as well as in New York. The first trip was to the Caribbean and St. Vincent Islands, and there we, the other 15 non-self-governing territories were there, and the most important thing that came out of that meeting was that we all realized that we needed to network and we need to collate, form a coalition to get our message across, both nationally, where we reside from, and internationally. So that was an idea that was my idea. It gained really good review there. So right now, we're in concert now with Gibraltar, American Samoa, Falkland Islands, Puerto Rico, and the such. So what we're going to do now, we realized historically, when we read all the testimony and we read all the history of what has happened on the Committee of Decolonization, it fell in line with how I felt about this effort. As I mentioned earlier when I was on the show, President Obama supports political destiny. Our chairman, Francisco Carrion Mina from Ecuador, he wanted to see fresh ideas, and he wanted us to be imaginative, which fell in line with how I felt about how we're going to get our message across, how we're going to get attention to put the pressure on the United States, which is our administering power, to give us, you know, this political destiny, this sacred right. So that was the most important thing that came out of that meeting, was that we all realized that 14 of us are islands, and we are very similar in cultural mantra. We're very similar in how we view the land, the sea, and each other. So it's been good for us to exchange ideas. And
now, Ed, how many of those countries, I guess, are countries that have been colonized by the U.S. government?
It's American Samoa, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, us. Is there one more? That's about it on our side, and then the rest are from the Caribbean. And okay. And so that was the most important thing, is that now a network exists between us. And what we plan to do is use as much celebrity, as many, what we're talking about, especially in the case of American Samoa. They have all these National Football League players. Puerto Rico has all these baseball players and boxers and celebrity. So we want to reach out to them, and that's our plan, to reach out and have them advocate to their owners, to their bosses, because, you know, people know people who know people. And that's how we're going to get this done, at least in an awareness approach.
Now, is it an approach where you send national and international messages out there as one, as a group of colonized areas that need their own self-determination as one? Because, you know, we're looking at big time. You're saying you're looking at celebrities, for example. You have The Rock, that's of Samoan descent, right? You have, of course, like a Ricky Martin, who is a Puerto Rican descent, and so on and so forth, and all that, right? But so, and we definitely have our own celebrities, but not in the world stage as some of these celebrities of these other destinations have. So are we going to do that as a group, holistically, to come out and, you know, I am so and so, and we want to determine a political destiny to these following areas?
Yeah, that has yet to be determined, but at least from American Samoa and Puerto Rico, they're on our side as far as they're listed as a possession of the United States. So, and that's where I think the most celebrity lies. But so that was something that came out of that I think is the right way to go. So the one track we have going is that track with the celebrity. Then we want to reach out to national programs like 2020 Dateline, Oprah Winfrey. I know she doesn't have her show anymore, but she has a network. And then Larry King and Pierce Morgan, and things like that to get the message across. As much as we can, we need exposure, you know, nationally and internationally. Now, let me preface this by saying this will do us no good if here on our island we don't have the same awareness.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so I think that first of all, the first step we've got to do is we need to get our people interested, aware, and informed about this. If we're not able to do that, then it makes no sense to go nationally and internationally, and they ask me or anyone here how do they feel about it, and we don't have an opinion about it.
One of the things that there was a letter to the editor, I think this weekend, actually by one of my guests last week, of course, Victoria Lola Leon Guerrero, regarding, and she's an instructor, professor at the University of Guam. And her letter basically stated that she goes, hey, I mean, I think 90 or even more % of her students come in there have little knowledge of the self-determination and the need to determine our political destiny, and that's because they really, over the years, they haven't been taught. So how do we, I mean, where do we start, at what point? Because when we come to that point of determining our political destiny, when we come for that day when we go to the polls to vote, you know, we don't want the voter apathy, and we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
We talked about the fact that, you know, of course, I even have a nephew. I'm sure you have nephews, and you have, you know, people who have grown up being comfortable on their blue U.S. passport, and the fact that they have access to the internet and cell phones and everything else. They have the comforts of living in the United States, being here as well. So, you know, they have sometimes the misgivings of determining our political destiny will put him in a more awkward or probably a worse position than now. Why would they want to do that? So how do we get to them and say, hey, you know, this is not what that's about?
Yeah, absolutely. I see what you mean. And, you know, with the information that has been out there now, I mean, like the article said, they don't understand what the process is. They don't understand what it means. They know very little about it. But I think the more and more we educate them about what it's about, that it's a sacred, inalienable right, that it's something that the United States gave us. We're not fighting for this. They gave it to us as a result of them signing the United Nations Charter in 1946. You know, and I think that if people on Guam found out certain pieces of information, they might feel different about the political status situation. I think what we have to do, first of all, is have awareness amongst ourselves first. We need to do a lot of educating on the people here to tell them what this is about, what the history is about, and why it's so important for them to be interested.
In other words, we have to educate ourselves before we educate other people.
You know, there's quite a few that know about it, but there's a large number that do not.
Yeah, we have to sell it to ourselves before we sell it to the general
Like
public.
one thing, Jess, a lot of people don't realize that the U.S. Constitution does not fully apply to us because we gained our citizenship. We do not.
We're not naturalized.
We're not. Yeah, we got it through federal statute.
Yeah.
We didn't get it through birth or naturalization. So there's a difference.
We'll talk more about that. We've got to take a quick break, and we'll come back more about our plebiscite and the plans to decide our political destiny with Ed Alvarez. Be right back.